There it is. Hey. So, welcome to this live stream. This is about the Fat Life being an invitation. Uh, I can't even think right now. Initiation. The Fat Life is an initiation into remembering your power. My name is Lauren Cercion. I've been in fitness for 24 years in June, and I am an energetic healer, an embodiment coach, and I really help the boss babes with their sabotage and their ghosting. So I know that energetic space between setting a goal and achieving it. So I'm excited to share this with you today because we are in like such a monumental time to be alive. And I just need to share a couple of things with you super quickly so that you can really get the context of why this live stream is so important and why it is so important for you to start reclaiming your power. We have we have 380 days. 380 days until the turn of a civilization where Saturn and Neptune are going to conjunct. They're going to be very close together at 0 degrees of Aries. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and 0 degrees is the very first moment of that flavor of energy. Saturn is going to give us discipline and structure, and Neptune is the feminine energy. And they're both going to be in Aries, which is a fire sign, which is go. So I have been doing my research to find other times that we had major societal changes with the Saturn and Neptune conjunction. So I just want to read them to you really quickly before we get into how you can personally reclaim your power right now as a woman. So we had in 1524, Saturn and Neptune conjunct Aries at 0 degrees. And the definition of this is actually the horrible mother becomes the devouring church. So that means I should probably explain to you what the great cosmic mother is. In Neolithic times, pre-patriarchal recorded history, God is a woman. The symbology of God is a human woman giving birth. And in the God being a woman um, belief system that the planet had before men started dividing civilization and making it about power and force and competition and dominion and taking instead of being in a collaborative community such as it was in matriarchal societies. So if we go way back before organized religion, there was just this knowing that God is a female because everybody starts feminine. Everyone is a female fetus until 8 weeks when a certain hormone starts to develop for the ovaries to form into testicles. And a lot of male children are coming out more female than male these days because of phytoestrogens in the plastics of the mom's bodies. And so, why we see a lot of male men who are lacking a lot of the masculine traits as far as like bone structure or physical body hair growth, or just like having a long-term baby face. A lot of it has to do with them actually not producing enough testosterone to give the biological markers of male. And so I'm sharing this with you because the more that we can really take in what's going on in the polluted environment, then we can really put our feelings aside when we're dealing with some of the social issues right now that do have to do with gender, especially because on February 26th of 2026, we have this incredible opportunity to bring the feminine aspect of God as the creator back into our reality. Because what I'm going to share with you is what has happened because she is not part of our reality. So many people know that if you piss a woman off, the rage is unsurmountable, right? You do not want to have the wrath of a woman. Well, when the feminine deity was removed, then we had a lot of negative repercussions of that angry feminine energy. And so what happens is instead of humans being in a collaborative communion with the earth, such as if a woman had her menstrual period and she did not use her uterus lining to host a baby, then she gets her period, right? The uterus sheds, the blood comes out. Well, back then, before the patriarchal takeover, the women would actually just give their blood back to the earth. And it wasn't a sacrifice, it was a giving back of what was not needed. But when the patriarchy separated this, then we had to go into blood sacrificial religions. And we see that a lot in the religions that we mostly relate to: Christianity, Catholicism, Buddhism, or not Buddhism, Judaism, and Islam. So what I want to share with you is that the 1524 Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries, the horrible mother becomes the devouring church. So like I said, when you have the wrath of a woman, you don't want to be in the midst of a woman who's angry, right? So same thing for this feminine deity that got split to where our bodies became unclean, and sex that was a beautiful experience to enhance energy and enhance creative ability now became dirty. And it's like the oxymoron of it is that the men will are still doing things to female bodies, the very things that they accuse us of being dirty for, but they're victimizing us. But then um if we enjoy any type of sex, then that's actually like evil and dirty. So it's very convoluted of how the system has worked, and we're coming into a time where we can regenerate and bring more of the balance back. So like I said, back to 1524 with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 0 degrees Aries, this is when the direct relationship to the mother was severed and where we started to have the patriarchal religions. And in 2026, what we can look at this as kind of like a prophecy of like what could come and what we can prevent is that instead of the church dictating morality, AI algorithms will dictate reality, which we already see that happening. And instead of blood sacrifice, right, we have the blood sacrifice religions of the patriarchy. Instead of blood sacrifice, the sacrifice will be of consciousness itself. And we can see that with our doom scrolling. When we let our energy absorb into the phone, our consciousness is getting absorbed with it. And the phones can recognize, have facial recognition, right? So if we're looking at something and our face changes to sadness or horror or terror, and we keep looking at stuff like that, our algorithm is going to keep feeding things to reinforce that, because that's um, the recognition, the emotional recognition that we're giving the things. So we're actually creating more of our reality by us being sucked into our phones. Okay, next one up is the 1821 Saturn-Neptune conjunction, 0 degrees Capricorn. The horrible mother becomes the angry consumer. And this is where the earth, once sacred and cyclical, replenished through ritual, was now exploited for endless growth. And this one really stood out to me because it really made me think of how in the pre in the Neolithic, I should say the Neolithic time, the history that I've been reading is that these civilizations were highly advanced. And when Christianity came into form, the temples were destroyed, the artifacts were destroyed, the books were destroyed to make way for this new male god. And when I got into this consumerism, I started to think like, yeah, like when the matriarchal societies were in communion with themselves and everybody was working collaboratively so that the whole community could sustain itself as well as be sustainable with the resources they were taking from the earth. When the patriarchy comes in, it's how can I conquest? How can I get as much as I can? And I think of the fights that we have with people saying, about gas guzzling, trucks, and we shouldn't use gas. But then it's like, do you have any idea how toxic the batteries are? Do you have any idea the children who are mining the ingredients for the electric cars? Like we're not able to see the totality of our consumerism. And so that really stood out to me, that in 1821, it became the mass consumption. And what we can kind of see for 2026 is instead of physical labor, the sacrifice will be digital energy. algorithm, presence, and human creativity fed into the AI machine. Because you have to think about this like really expansively, that if you're a woman and you have this deep pain of separation, right? Our early childhood conditioning or our attachment wounds, we become angry. We have that masculine shield that has like major fuck off energy. And so if you think about this as a divine being, you could see how if the earth is not being replenished through the natural rhythm of the feminine body returning to the earth her blood that is not used, then we need the blood sacrifice to quench this thirst of the angry mother. And we end up becoming more and more consumption, and she wants to consume us because there is not a balance. So the more that the more that we have become mass consumerism since 1821, the more she needs to consume us to replenish herself. 1889, Uranus enters Scorpio plus Pluto and Gemini. This is the horrible mother becomes the nationalist matriarch. And this is where we have the world wars. And so the motherland was no longer a place of nourishment. It became a force demanding bodies for war. And so because we got into that, then what she needed to be fed was our men. And so instead of what happened in 1889, what we could look to see might happen in February of 2026 is, instead of sending men to war, AI driven narratives will send minds into battle. People will fight over illusions. And we already see that happening now. There's so many arguments because of social media where you don't know what you're reading. And some of the stuff that you're reading will not be on the mainstream because it doesn't serve the propaganda machine and the money machine. And so then you have like these fights where like people who believe the propaganda machine and the TV are like fighting for their masters, it's yeah. Okay. Digital nationalism will replace physical nationalism, trapping people into ideological warfare. That's the algorithm. That's already happening too. 1966, Uranus Pluto conjunction in Virgo. The horrible mother becomes the corporate feminine. The ladies went to work. The mother was granted freedom, but only through service to the system. And this is where you see a lot of the women leaving the household and becoming boss babes. The echo in 2026 could be the next form of empowerment will be digital sovereignty, but only within the AI controlled system. Women's bodies will be further disconnected from the real embodiment through biotech, artificial wombs, and genetic modification, which again, we already see happening. Now in 2026, Saturn, Neptune at 0 degrees Aries plus Pluto in Aquarius, the horrible mother as the AI hive mind. So the wound is the final severing of humanity from the organic reality. And there is no echo for 2026 because that could be what's going to happen to us. So I wanted to share this with you because I have long been on a journey about power reclamation. When I made my gym in 2011, it was about women taking their power back. And it was about being strong and flexible in the mind and the body, because that was the stage of my healing that I was in. However, I was in like turbo boss babe energy. And to me, anything that was soft and feminine and heartfelt was a sign of weakness. And when I was in a multi-level marketing company with Isogenics, and they have these big rah-rah events to get everybody excited to have their sales, I actually had the mic handed to me by one of the owners. And I said, I'm committed to helping women take their power back. So this has been something that has been like in me for a very long time. And the more I look at how fast I've moved through certain things with my Aries energy, I'm like, I always felt this like there is a deadline, there is something that we have to do. And as a manifesting generator in human design, we can get really obsessive around time. And I used to think that this was such a bad thing. But then now that I'm looking at what these astrological events are and what we have coming for us, I'm like, of course, I have been pushing so hard to the detriment of my body that to meet this deadline. So for the ladies, February 26th of 2026 is when Saturn and Neptune are going to be in Aries. And so what this means for us is, because this is a time to have this feminine planet at this 0 degree mark. And because we are already in feeling what it is to like feel our emotions again and have emotional intelligence and have the tools of attachment theory, that we can really understand that, like, hey, the things that happen to us in the ages of 0 to 3 really affect us. And as we're in the digital age with social media, and we have so many ways to compare ourselves, in so many ways that people are telling us one way is right and one way is wrong, we have like such ample opportunity because there is so much information. And it's going to get even more intense when Uranus moves into Gemini, because Gemini is basically like the two doors of the universe, and Uranus is a rebellious, quick on their feet planet. And so we're going to be able to essentially have the doors of the universe open. Like, we're going to walk into a library and we're going to like be able to pick and choose what intelligence we're going to have, or like if we're going to go to a mall, we're going to be able to pick out what we want to embody for the rest of our lives, but then also set the pace for us to regenerate the great mother instead of what we have been experiencing for so long. And this makes so much sense for like how obsessed I've gotten with understanding slavery and colonization, and how the Christian church upholds that tradition, and then how the first perpetration, as far as I knew back then, was the witch hunts, that the women were hunted for 300 years. But that was part of this system that way back in the Neolithic age took people from having this union with the earth and having union with each other, and actually having the feminine body revered. And so, if we take this into context with our deep inner work, that if we're so strict with following a diet, if we're so attached to a protocol, that is part of us from this very deep seated cultural stuff that is millennia old. It's really, really old conditioning. And so, when we're taking a look at what's happening in the world and we're like, this system needs to change, that system needs to change, this needs to change, what we're not really seeing, and that the underbelly of it is this disconnection from God and from nature, from how we are a species in um, symbiotic to the earth. And so when we're doing our inner work for this time, and we really start to go deep with it, where we say, you know what, the way I feel about my body is actually might not even be my own stuff. It could be because I have been subjected to marketing, and my mother was subjected to marketing. Her grandmother was subjected to marketing that said, excuse me, if I'm not skinny, I will not be worthy of love. If I don't present myself in a certain way, if I don't look this way, if I don't style my hair this way, if I don't have this type of clothes, I will not be worthy of being selected. Because what has happened with the disembodiment of the feminine deity, what has happened to us is that we had to get competitive with each other. And so a lot of the things that we're struggling with our own body image is that we're afraid of what other women are going to say. We're afraid that we are either going to make them feel uncomfortable if they're not doing what we're doing, if 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 what we are doing ends up on a hierarchy where we have the leg up. And then we could be comparing ourselves to the women who think have a leg up on us, to where we're not good enough, we're inadequate. And when we really start to see that, of like, how can we use as a woman our entire experience to really understand what it is of how we're feeling about ourselves and what we're thinking about ourselves and how we're diminishing ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why working with boss babes is so important to me, not just because that's who I am and I've had to go through the growing pains of finding that balance of when to use the drive and when to scale back, when to work really hard and when to actually rest and kind of let things simmer and see how things are going to play out and evolve. It's also because we were warriors, we were teachers, we were scientists, we were architects. The matriarchal societies before the patriarchy did it all. Did it all of it, all of it. And it wasn't where the men were a sub to the woman, it was a collaborative community. But because women can birth another human being, there was a different kind of reverence for the feminine. And we can see how much that we've been told that we're the lesser of the two genders, and that we have to do so many things to fit into beauty standards and like be youthful forever to make us attractive to men. And so when we're looking at this boss babe energy and we really start to do our own personal work and our own history of our own conditioning as our gender, and we find out that, oh my gosh, like we were the leaders, there's absolutely nothing wrong with us being masculine. And anybody who is telling us that we're too masculine, maybe that person is pretty indoctrinated and they're not understanding the full scope of what it is to be a woman, because a woman is light and dark. And this concept of the woman being light and dark is the sphere that I talk about so much, and that there is a light tone to it and a dark tone to it, just like a spectrum of a rainbow. But like, instead of it being a rainbow, it's just going to be black all the way up to bright white light. And so when the patriarchy came in, they actually split that in two, and the light became them, and the dark became us. And so there are so much things about women being sinful, and so many stories that we have been indoctrinated in that Eve was the evil one, where these stories are really there to disempower us and keep us plain small. So when we look at this overarching history of what it is to be a woman, and we accept or we acknowledge and we celebrate that we're in these planetary transits that are going to change society, and that we have all the tools necessary for us to rewild, for us to get into our bodies again, not only for ourselves but for each other, and to help restore balance in the years, the decades, and the civilizations to come. Like, it's absolutely incredible. So when you're doing this work in the PHAT Life, like, this is just like the overarching context that I'm always going to have. But in the PHAT Life, we go through the real habits step by step. You have checklists to keep you on track. You have video trainings to understand how you change your relationship with food, because the relationship that we have with food, that is just where we direct our emotions. That is where we are projecting our emotions, because the food is the thing that is going to give us or derail us from our dream body. So when we feel that we're not good enough, that there is something wrong with us, we are going to then use all of the diet and exercise habits with that are for the dream body as weapons. They start to consume us. So when you're in the PHAT Life and we're doing the work around your food, you're actually going to learn, like, what kind of mouthfeel do you like? Do you like soft and squishy, or do you like crunchy? Do you like fatty food to where you feel more satiated, where it's more dense, or do you like more carbs where you have a sense of fullness and volume when you eat? You set a timer for every 2.5 hours, not to force yourself to eat, but to check in and like actually talk to your body and see, are you hungry? On a scale of 1 to 10, how hungry are you? How much should we eat? Are we good? Like, you have actual tools to help you get back into your body. And then we do have strategies around a calorie deficit so that you can burn fat over time, so that you can just start to expose more and more muscle on your body. When we're doing the work about your body, we're using your mirror. We are using the mirror, the reflection in the mirror, and we are unpacking the thoughts and feelings that are in the body parts that aren't working well, that are unhealthy, and then also the ones that you don't like. Because where you look at yourself and you judge and you shame and you reject yourself, these are all parts of this indoctrination where our bodies were destroyed, and the image of our bodies were destroyed and made to be whores. I mean, honestly, like, it was Mary Magdalene or the Mother Mary. Like, which one are you going to be? We're kind of both, right? So when we are the other two things, well, there's a couple of things there's a couple of things that we do in the PHAT Life that I'm not going to cover, but the other two things that are super important is your brain and heart coherency breathing. You only do this for 3 minutes a day, and like I said, you have all the trainings about it, and you have guided meditations. Because what we do with the 3 minutes of brain and heart coherency breathing is you change the energy in your body, you change the energy in your aura. So then you're able to attract experiences that will make you feel love, joy, appreciation, kindness, and care. And when you get yourself into an imaginative state of something that would make you feel love, joy, appreciation, kindness, care from the outside in, then what happens is your existing emotional state, the stuff that is keeping you from reaching your dream body, the sabotage and the ghosting, you have contrast of those emotional states, so you can actually access your inner work easier. And then We use your astrological placements of your Lilith, which the Lilith is um, she is the placement where she is thinking outside the box. So all the ways that you are not fitting into this patriarchal society are your superpowers. This is how we actually restore the great mother, the cosmic mother. This is how we restore feminine leadership in onto the planet. And then your Chiron is your core wound. And so the Chiron wound is something that you're gonna deal with for your rest of your life, but also it's the thing that makes you the most magnetic when you change your view of it. And so then this really helps us get to the bottom of that spectrum of I'm afraid of being too much, or this is going to cost me too much. That's the Lilith placement. And I'm not good enough. I'm afraid that even if I do my best for my dream body, it won't be good enough. Therefore, I won't try. That's your Chiron placement. So that tied together with the inner child work, that was the other thing. You have a couple guided meditations for your inner child to where I'm going to teach you how to evaluate who you needed at the time of certain developmental ages and stages. And when you find out who you needed at the time of negative, significant emotional events, what will happen is number one, you usually find out that you have already fulfilled that. You are already who you needed, which is the journey. The voids from our childhood are the values and what we fulfill in our purpose as an adult. So when you learn that all you have to do is fulfill your childhood voids, it's almost like like an imaginary staircase, just a red carpet just keeps rolling out in front of you when you stay committed to your purpose, which is fulfilling your own inner child's needs. And so this system that I've put together encompasses so much: our modern psychology, our eating and exercise, bodybuilding, structural alignment stuff, astrology, attachment theory, all of it together so that you can get results as fast as possible. I spent 14 years getting to this point, and I wish that when I stopped binge eating and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress because of my mom's stalker, I wish I had a system like this. I had to put everything together through the years when I was just peeling back layers. And so this system is really what I would have wanted. And so that's why I'm like so happy about it and so excited about it. And I'm like, this system is right on time. I've tried to make something like this for years, and now I'm like, this makes perfect sense of like why it never worked out, because this is what it really is. So if you sign up today, you use the code rebirth50 and you get 50% off your first month if you do the monthly private container. And then you get 50% off the first month if you do the monthly community container. Both are hosted on a platform called School. And there is also a gamified version where it's $49 a month and you get all of the resources and you get the community aspect. And if you participate on the platform, the leaderboard will keep your score every single month. And every single month, you have a chance to win being on one of the weekly community coaching calls. So that's really awesome. You've got a $49 option, you've got a $555 option, and you have a $1,500 option so that you can start reclaiming your power and you can be one of the women that is the next generation laying it out, bringing the feminine energy back into the planet, where we're restoring balance within ourselves, within each other, within our relationships, and then of course with the earth. Bye.